Hello, and welcome to the Miraculous Being series. I'm your host and self awareness coach, Shweta Shivraman, and this is a show where we discover, learn, and implement life lessons from others' journeys. Others who I believe epitomize miraculous in its truest spirit. Individuals who live life to the fullest, worked hard on themselves to reach where they are, and are passionate in what they do. Today's speaker is Devika Dharmaraj. She's passionate about normalizing conversations around mental health. With over 30 years of HR experience across geographies and sectors, laying the foundation, she enables organizations with the outside in view on providing psychological safety at the workplace in the long run and building a positive work culture. I'm very curious to have this conversation with Devika. I'm sure it is going to be an insight packed session. So hang in there and let's go meet Devika. Hi, Devika. Thank you so much for taking time out to be on the show. I'm so thrilled to have you on the Miraculous Beings podcast.
Thank you, Shweta. Thank you for having me. It's my privilege to be here.
Absolutely. I thoroughly enjoyed our first conversation. I'm so psyched for today. But maybe before we get any further, you could start off by sharing your journey so far and, how did you get to working around mental health space and psychological safety, and maybe highlight some pivotal moments that you felt in retrospect shifted things for you.
Okay, my story is very personal. There was no professional impetus to it at all. As you know, I've had about 30 plus years in corporate HR, yeah, and the range of roles, right from factory to consulting, But maybe about 8 years ago, we had poor health in the family, illness in the family. Yeah, my child has a mental health challenge, and this happened at her college age when she went to college. That around that age, and it completely derailed us as parents, in the sense we didn't know anything about what to do, how to manage it, we didn't understand it at all. So in my quest to understanding what was going on with our child, and trying to support them as parents, um, the more I studied, the more I realized how little I know. Yeah, and it was quite a shock actually, because my husband and I are uh, fairly well educated in terms of how much we have studied, and we are fairly well read either or also. So um, I realized that if we know so little, then that means a large portion of the population also will know so little. And these are all things I feel that we should have learned in school, and it's not part of our education system. Yeah, that's when I realized how much of a stigma it is. Yeah, so then, given that I do not have a psychology education background, there's not that much I could do in terms of qualifying myself in this area. Yeah, because a lot of the requirements need a basic degree in psychology. Yeah, I didn't have the energy or the bandwidth to go back to college and do a full degree again. So I was looking around to see what can I do, and found this mental health first aid program. And to my great delight, in 2017 or 18, they set up in India and in Chennai, where I live. So that was like a huge, okay, this is destiny, it's meant to be kind of thing. And I went ahead and did that program, big eye opener. I became an instructor with them, because you become sort of like an evangelist when something those lights just come on in your head, and you want everybody else to see those lights too.
Yeah.
So that's what led me to do this. Much of my agenda is just normalizing conversations, getting people to talk about it, little bit of awareness, education, so that we don't walk past somebody who's in distress just because we don't know what's going on, or because if we can bridge that gap a little bit, I think it will make a big difference to everybody. So that's what really got me on this road. And because it made such a that little bit of awareness and education made such a difference to me. I want everybody else to see what I saw, sort of thing. And this is just the tip. I know that I know very little, actually. Yeah, there's so much more out there to learn in the, I think we don't know enough at all. So there's a lot. There's however little you do, I think it's worth doing.
Yeah. I'm sure. Thank you so much for sharing it so authentically and with all this vulnerability. And I think what you said was so true, that so that nobody walks past someone in distress, right?
Yeah.
I think that just summed up the the impact that you hope to create, saying that even if you can create that little awareness around mental health. And I'm sure that's not a very easy task, given how much of a stigma is probably still associated with mental health,
Oh,
seen as a sign of a weakness. And how has it been for you in your journey?
huge stigma, and much of it is social stigma, right? And it's so deep rooted that I think even those of us who are in this field are still impacted by our own biases, right? And what will people think is the biggest block that we have, right, as human beings. So I'll share my own story a little bit. Okay. A couple of years ago, I lost my dog, and he was, I'm a dog person. He was like a child for me. And it just knocked the bottom out of my world. Okay. And I just went into this sort of a very, very low space. And it was like really like losing a child for me. And didn't, so all the classic, not interested, not wanting to go out, socialize, crying into my pillow every night, all that, low energy, all of that. And I was taking a session on mental health first aid during one of the sessions. And I just stopped in the middle of the session because I realized I was ticking all those boxes. And I'm like, oh my God, I need help. So just to say, even those who are in the, I know this, but I'm not able to see it in myself, or I don't want to, I'm just seeing it as, what, even me? Like, as if it's some sort of weakness. Yeah. But we don't say that when we get a cold, no? If we catch a cold from, traveling somewhere and we catch a cold, we don't say, oh, I'm so weak, I got a cold.
We
Or I
blame a neighbor instead.
Yeah, that's right. We do pamper ourselves a little bit, and we want to get better, and we recognize it as a health issue, and we want to get better, right? So to go back to my story, recognizing it as a health issue was a blind spot for me. Yeah. To realize that I also am susceptible. It's not somebody else. It's not the other, it's me. Yeah. So I realized that for each of us, and the statistics show, right? We're saying 1 in 5, 1 in 8, 1 in 10 for various things.
Right. So, but we are not that one.
We are not that one. That's right. Yeah. So that really hit me hard. And what I had was a very mild depression. I went to a psychiatrist, got medication, got treatment, got all of that, and I got better. It took me a long time. It took me about 8 or 9 months to come out of it fully. Okay. But what it showed me was that the biases are so deep rooted. Our thoughts around these, of shame, of weakness, of all that, are so deep rooted, we don't even see it as applicable to ourselves, right? So it's a long journey. Until we, I mean, if you take the example of say leprosy, how leprosy was treated hundreds of years ago. Yeah. And with all that we know now, still, if you say the word leprosy or leper to somebody, there is a sort of shrinking back. No? Aversion. Even with everything we know.
Yeah.
So see how deep, hundreds and hundreds of years of stigma
Yeah.
that is. Yeah. So this is also very deep rooted, because we don't want to, we see it as a weakness. I'm trying to get people to not see it as a weakness.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I'm so sorry for your loss. I can imagine how hard that must have been.
Yeah, thank you.
Uh,
Thank you for that.
but yeah, I think what you said is very true, that somehow we feel that we are not that one person and we feel that we don't need any help. And I
Mhm.
think one of the things you and I discussed as well was that sometimes it's very hard to notice those signs or recognize those signs in yourself, right? In terms of
Yeah.
deteriorating mental health. So if you were to share, what will be some of the common signs that probably, listeners can do like a self-assessment to check in every now and then on how are they feeling mentally?
Okay. So I think day to day stress and distress is there for everybody, right? And it's a spectrum.
Mm,
The how acute it is and how much it impacts you is a spectrum for everybody. Yeah, it can be something that you feel in passing and can brush off. It can be something that you feel very deeply and it stays with you for a long period of time.
mm,
Now, um, the typically the things to look out for in terms of, what where should the alarm bells go off for
mm,
for one, really, is when there are like drastic changes in how you are, in your moods, in your thoughts, in your feelings, in how you behave. Yeah, changes in how you are. Yeah.
mm,
This is not me. When you say that this is not me,
mm,
and I've you know how I don't want to be this way either. Yeah.
mm,
And when that starts affecting your day-to-day life and your relationships and your work and your that it starts impacting that over a period of time. Yeah, we all have low days, we all have anxious moments, we all have grief and loss and all of that, right? But when it is becoming dysfunctional and over a period of time, and when I say period of time, typically they look at over 2-3 weeks. Yeah, if it continues over that period of time, then I would say, yeah, we need help.
mm,
Yeah.
right.
Now, I always akin this to physical health.
Mm,
Yeah, so if you had a headache for like a week every day,
mm,
we would go to a doctor, right? Like, what's wrong with me? I've tried everything. I'm drinking water, I'm sleeping, I'm doing all of that, and I still have this headache. I would see a doctor.
yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to feelings and thoughts and our mood shifts and things like that, there
Mm,
is very often a physical base to it.
mm, mm,
It's all biochemical reactions in our bodies, right, that trigger these things. Or your dopamine, serotonin, your hormones are all these are secreted by glands and organs in our body, and
mm,
sometimes those are not in the balance that they should be to give us equilibrium, right?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
sometimes it's as simple as that, which is why we say, especially more women more than men. Why do we say that in terms
Mm,
of mood issues?
yeah.
It's because our hormones are going crazy during puberty, during childbirth, during menopause. You
Yeah.
know, not that it doesn't happen for men, but for men, it's not this war zone.
Yeah.
It's a much more gentle and longer term change that happens with them.
Right.
Yeah, so they don't have this like drama going on inside like women do.
Yeah, I like the depiction of a war zone. Feels
It is.
accurate.
I'm in it right now. So
Feels on point. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing those signs. Sorry, were you going to add something to that?
Yeah, I mean, signs, when you're asking me for what should we look for, no, I think there are too many to enumerate right now. I would just say distress.
Yeah.
Yeah, signs of distress
Yeah.
in yourself or in your how you are
Right.
with people and in your actions. Yeah.
Right.
So that really you should look at, is there distress? How acute is it? How is it impacting your life?
Right.
Yeah, much of it is our day-to-day stuff only, which
Mm.
can be helped by, by good social interactions, by good habits, routine, food, sleep, just regular stuff can help all of these things. Yeah. When it doesn't, and there is still, it's just like with physical health, when you're trying to regulate everything and it's still something is not okay, and then you go to see a doctor.
Right. Yeah. Beautiful. So look for signs of distress and behavior change in your
Yes.
day-to-day life and routines,
Yes.
and something that's persistent
Yes.
over 2-3
That's
weeks.
right. Yeah. So even if is as normal as puberty or childbirth, or when I said no, menopause, all
Mm.
these the normal
Mm.
hormonal changes that we, anticipate as a course, as a part of being alive, in this gender sort of thing. Um, Even then, sometimes it can go out of whack.
Yeah.
And then you need a doctor, no, to put it back on track.
Track. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for simplifying that. And I think that analogy to physical ailments always makes it so much more uh, easy to relate to, because that is something we do on a regular basis without question.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why the differentiation when it comes to something
Absolutely.
or intangible?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think since you brought up the whole difference between the gender, right? The
Mm.
women and men, just curious, I think this question keeps coming asked a lot, saying, are some people more susceptible
Mm.
to mental health issues than others?
Definitely, I think yes. Yeah. So what I've learned is there are broadly three kinds of risks.
Mm.
One is biological, one is social, and the other is psychological. Yeah. So biological is something that you don't have much control over, but social and psychological is if you're in poverty in a war-torn country, if your government is very controlling, or so the environment that you're living in,
Mm.
that is your social aspect of it, right? What kind of environment are you living in? What kind of society are you living in? And psychological is events that happen to you, relationships that you have, um, maybe traumatic events, maybe you may be either privy to it as a participant, as a viewer, as an observer, as a just something that you hear. It could be any of that. Yeah. So I feel that biological, there's not much you can do.
Mm.
Yeah, but you can. So even in biological, if you know that you have diabetes in the family, you're going to be a little careful, right?
Right.
And keep testing for it, and be careful about your food and exercise and all that. So even with biological, there is some element of control that you would have if you have the awareness and the knowledge
Mm.
of it. Yeah. The rest of it is where the social and psychological is really where we have a little more control. As a people, as a society, we have a little more control. Yeah.
Yeah.
um, what can you do? So when I work with organizations, for example, I say this is where you can make a change. Your culture, your how your policies are, what you're doing in with your people,
Mm.
will impact them. You can't say that it will not impact them.
Right.
Someone has a challenge, what you're doing in the organization and what they experience in the organization will impact them. If they already have a problem, it will aggravate it. If they don't have a problem, you'll be creating something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the culture plays a big role, social culture as well as organizational culture.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Thank you for simplifying that so beautifully. So the three factors, biological,
Mm.
social, and psychological. And somewhere I think I read this concept of mental fitness, right? And I see a lot of these mental fitness gyms coming
Yeah.
in and all of those things, wherein can you be proactive in terms
Yes.
of strengthening the mind and being more resilient? And again, it goes back to like strengthening the body, right? You may not have an illness, but can you strengthen the
Yes. Yes.
body, right?
Absolutely.
And your thoughts around that,
Yeah,
what is
I'll take what you said, just like physical illness and fitness. So, in the mental health framework also, let me frame it like the WHO frames it. That mental health is not an absence of something, right?
Mm.
Absence of health. It is good health.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is being able to do certain things, being able to enjoy what you do, to be competent at what you do, to be able to contribute to, your community. All those are factors of well-being, right? So um, just like with physical health, if I'm not ill also, it doesn't mean I'm fit, right? I can still be unfit. I can be low energy. I can be fatigued. I can be all the signs and symptoms of poor health
Mm.
may be there without illness.
Mm.
Yeah. So for me to be in the wellness end of the spectrum, there's a bunch of things I need to do, right? Again, going back to food, exercise, social connections. Yeah, I cannot emphasize enough on that, on the strength of social connections. Yeah, I think so many people who fall into illness
Mm.
do so because they've not built those muscles,
Mm.
right? And part of that building of that muscle is you have to work at relationships. It doesn't happen by magic. Yeah.
Mm.
So friendships, I know so many people, uh, uh, including myself, for whom friendships from childhood are very easy.
Yeah.
You can just catch up from, even if I don't see them for ages, when I meet, it's like magic.
Yeah.
That trust is there, the relationship is there. So hard to make new friends,
Mm.
right? You have to put so much effort into it.
Yeah.
And again, it's not magic. It's spent when we were kids. That time spent was not consciously spent.
Right.
Now, as adults, we have to consciously spend that time with
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's so much other things that we are doing with our lives, right? With like other responsibilities. So yeah, I would think, just like with physical fitness, you have to make time for it. You have to
Yeah.
make time to get up and go for a run or a jog or a gym, or whatever it is that we do, yoga, meditation, whatever it is. We make time for it,
Yeah.
right? And I think this is a good point to say that the lines sort of blur between mental fitness and physical fitness, because a
Mm.
lot of the things we do for physical fitness also contribute to mental fitness.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. So because the exercise sort of fills your body with adrenaline and the right hormones to impact positive mental well-being as well.
Mm.
Yeah. So I think it's important to say that let's not demarcate the two like that. There's a big
Overlap.
overlap, and you can't have one without the other. Frankly, I feel, it's when people are uh, you need to have both.
Mm. Very
You
interesting.
need to
Yeah.
have both. Yeah, because I feel physically unwell if my mood is low,
Mm.
and I feel, I feel fatigued, I feel low energy and things like that. Yeah.
Mm.
And when I'm ill also, I'm conversely in a no mood,
Correct.
right?
Yeah. They are intricate, right? At the end of the day, they are interconnected to a large extent. Yeah.
So people have asked me, so
Mm.
why do athletes get depressed? They're like in
Mm.
peak form, no?
Mm.
Physical form. How are you saying it's not that it's all dependent on each other? They're in top physical form. How can they get depressed? Yeah. So obviously not as simple as that, as simplistic
Right.
as that. It is, there are
Pattern.
some, for many people there are some organs that can overproduce, underproduce
Mm.
certain um, biochemical components which contribute to this. It could be your social and psychological factors that we talked about earlier. Yeah.
Right.
So it's not just one thing. There are so many threads that contribute to it.
Mm. But in a way, it can help getting one thing right.
Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Let's say that it is one of the essentials.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Right. And I think you touched upon the social connections part, which is very relevant in our generation, where I think conversations have been reduced to emojis being shared in from one
It's
end
so
to the
easy, Ashweta. I'm
other.
also falling into this thing of what to respond now to this person. Put one
Set a
thumbs up,
heart.
send a heart, put a thumbs up, put one,
Yeah.
two hands up. I love that emoji.
Right. Right. It's so easy to
Yeah.
communicate and not really
Yes.
communicate anything real.
Yeah.
I think it becomes that much.
So that word easy you said, no? All this is work, and those muscles are not used for us.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not. It's harder to have that conversation because we are not used to using those muscles.
Mm.
We've fallen into disuse.
Yeah. Very interesting. That's why maybe we try and avoid those kind of conversations because it's so
Yeah,
hard.
it is absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it takes me to an interesting point you mentioned when we first connected, saying how we often underestimate our
Mm.
friendships and our relationships by
Yeah.
hiding all of these things from them, saying, what will they think? Or maybe they cannot take it if we were to share. Would love your
Yeah.
view on that.
So again, stigma. No, what will people think? Yeah, and if it unfortunately, what will people think? Sometimes if the person means a lot to me, then it means uh, sometimes I want them to think the best of me. So if
Yeah.
there is shame around this, then there is
Mm.
a hesitation to share it because I don't want them to think less of me.
Mm.
Yeah, so there is that aspect to it also. So I think often, the ones who are closest to you are often the last to be confided in,
Mm.
right? All even though they see the signs and they get perturbed by it,
Yeah.
but don't have the skills or the language to broach. Yeah, walking on eggshells all the time around that person then,
Yeah.
right? So I think trust and the ability, the language is very important. You need to have the ability to speak about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not just you need to have the words to say,
Yeah.
right? What should I say now? Suppose my friend is having a problem, okay, or my sister is having a problem or whatever. I can see it. I can see it every day. Yeah,
Mm.
but how do I tell her without upsetting her or antagonizing her or
Yeah.
So very often that barrier is just a lack of vocabulary and a lack of knowing what to say and when to say it,
Right.
which was when this first aid thing I did was very helpful in that way. It removed a lot of those barriers for me,
Yeah.
you know, and it opened up my ability to speak about. And I realized that when you speak about it, it allows the other person to speak as well. If you show some vulnerability and not that I'm the hero and I'm there, you can talk to me, don't worry, I'm the strong one, then it doesn't help.
Yeah.
Yeah? So whenever I can, I tell my story because it opens that door,
Mm.
and I find that if you're able to talk about it, it allows the other person also to talk about it.
Yeah.
Every person I have spoken to in a social setting about what's been happening in our family have opened up with a story of their own.
Yeah.
It is there in every family, Shweta. Every family has got a poor mental health. There is somebody suffering in each family, and we don't know what to do about it.
Yeah. Absolutely, so true. And I think that's one of the reasons also why, it feels like a stigma, right? Because we don't share our stories. So it feels like
Yeah,
it's only
yeah,
one in a million, and we feel isolated and cut off when in fact we can lean
correct.
into each other and take that support.
So I want to, because you've said this now, I want to draw a parallel to the Pride movement, the
Hmm.
whole LGBTQ thing.
Yeah.
How much stigma was, right?
Yeah.
They were killed. People
Yeah.
who came out were killed at one time, hundreds of years ago,
Yeah.
right? Where are we now? And
Mm.
how did that happen? It only happened with people speaking up, other people, allies having the courage to support them, to normalize it. And there are countries in the world where it's completely normal,
Mm.
right? Even if, of course, pockets of conservatism in every country, but
Yeah.
there are many places in the world where it is completely normalized, integrated into society. My son lives in Montreal, which is like the gay capital of the world, I'm told.
Mm.
One of his friends, when we went for his convocation and met one of his friends who has two moms,
Mm.
and they're married to each other, and it was just so lovely to
Yeah.
see, how normal it was.
Yeah.
So it's the same journey, I feel. Something that's completely normal, we have stigmatized and made it something to not talk about.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's up to us only to undo that and talk about it now.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this is something that I made a point. So I wrote a book right last year, which I
Yeah.
titled "You're Fine," and I actually said that because I realized that so many ways we keep saying I'm fine, I'm good, I'm well, but we are actually not, right? So now I make it a conscious effort. If it's a person I know and who genuinely cares for me and I want
Mm,
to share, when they
mm.
ask me how are you, I tell them the whole story, right?
Yeah.
If they have 5 minutes to listen, and
Yes.
it's usually not only the good things, right? There are those low points that you said, those bad days that we have.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the minute I share it, automatically the other person is also sharing their vulnerabilities and saying, you know what, I also just had a low
Mhm.
day. It took me a lot of effort to get dressed and come out and meet you right now. Right.
Wow. Okay.
And it is so, because then it is not that, I have the answers to the problems that my friend is sharing with me, or they
Yeah.
have the answers to my problems, right? But just the fact that you realize you're not alone,
You're not alone. That's a big factor. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
No support. That's why we have support groups, no? To
Correct.
know that you're not alone, that there are other people. Some days you feel very alone. You feel like I'm the only one in the world, who's going through this.
Right.
So that can be a very debilitating feeling,
Yeah.
you know. That those if you have a support group for an issue that you're facing, I think there's a lot to be gained.
Yeah.
By as simple as, I've joined a menopause support group called
Yeah.
Mirror, and it's great because I'm looking at things that people are putting out there and saying, hey, I'm on a much better weekend. I thought I was in a bad place, but I'm not. you
Yeah.
know on a lighter note. Yeah.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
it's, yeah.
Yeah, I think that way technology has been a great boon, right? That we get to access all of this from wherever we are. But still, so many conversations that I have, with clients, they do come and tell me saying that, Shweta, I don't know who to reach out to or even talk to about these
Mhm.
things, right? I might be noticing that something is different, and, they might notice that they struggle to get up on a Monday morning and go to work. It is getting harder every single day, but not really sure whom to reach out to. So,
Mm.
could you share some of the resources, maybe that maybe someone who's still not very comfortable sharing it in their social circle as yet can access in today's day and age?
So, two things, right? Professionals and non-professionals. In the professional space, mental health professionals, I think that it's such a gray area for the layperson that they don't realize that only a psychiatrist can prescribe medication, for example, a medical doctor. Yeah, that if you go to a counselor and they prescribe some medication for you, they're not qualified to prescribe medication. You
Yeah.
have to be a medical doctor for it. So little things like that people don't know.
Yeah.
Who can diagnose whether you have an illness or not? Yeah,
Mm.
only a clinical psychologist or a psychiatrist can.
Yeah.
Even in amongst psychologists themselves, as you very well know, it is a clinical psychologist that is trained to diagnose, not counseling psychologists,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the we don't people until I studied this, I didn't know.
Mm.
So this kind of thing should be general knowledge, I think. You
Yeah.
know, um, Counselors, dime a dozen. I think you can do a 1 week program and become a counselor and set up shop.
Mm.
In India, it's not regulated at all. Unfortunately, the government is looking to putting a regulatory framework around it, but not yet. They haven't done it yet. Um, so we have to be a little careful about what the qualification of that professional is before before one is referred to. A lot of helplines, but again, many of these helplines are manned by counselors. Yeah. So I would do a little research. So when if you have a physical problem, we do research, no? Who's the best consultant for this? Who's the best doctor in this? Who's the best practitioner who's the best physiotherapist? Right? We do some research and then go. Why are we not doing it for this? No? We just want some magic number to call and our problems will go away. No, just do the work like you do for physical health. Yeah. And I find with friends also, no, friends, family, close people who are close to you, emotionally close to you also, or when we don't open up to them, I always say just flip it. Yeah, if that was the person going through something, how would you respond if you knew they were going through something? Would you not want them to confide in you or to be there for them? So many cases of where we've lost a friend, and we're saying, why didn't he speak? Why didn't he talk to me? I was there. I was talking to him every week. Why didn't he say something? Yeah, all these thoughts.
Right.
So flip it and say, if it was that person, how would they? Can I be as good a friend as I want to? Can I treat that person as that friend who I want to be to that person?
Having that
English
trust
was very poor in that. I'm sorry, but you get what I mean.
Yeah, not at all. Though I understood what you were saying, that having that trust in saying that our friends will also
Be there for us.
show up
Yes.
when we ask them. Yeah.
Show up, and that they will want to show up.
Yeah.
You're not imposing on them. This is part of our friendship. It's love. I mean, because you love the person, you want to be there for them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Even little tips, no? I had a friend of mine who I haven't heard from for like 3 weeks, and this is a person who used to call me at least once or twice a week. Yeah, so I pinged and I got only monosyllabic replies. And this morning I called her, and 2 minutes into the conversation, she just burst out with, I can't keep this inside of me anymore. I'm really upset with you for something that I was not even aware of, okay, that I had said or done. But she trusted that I would receive it, with love. And I said, thank you for telling me, because I had no clue, And the one thing she said really stuck with me. She said, because I value this relationship, I'm telling you. If I didn't care about this relationship, I would have just walked on.
Wow. Yeah.
So we didn't agree also on a number of things, but I'm saying it's you're able to talk.
Yeah.
And that person is there. I know if I pick up the phone now, she'll be here, if I need her.
Right.
But I need to pick up the phone. She won't know by magic.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I think in a way, it's also like someone had told me this, saying that, if you talk to a therapist and you don't connect with them, go and find another one, right? You don't have to simply say therapy doesn't work for me and stop the process, right? Like just like how you find a physician who you relate with and who gets you.
Yeah.
Even in mental health.
I realized this because we did a lot of work in finding the right person for treatment. The difference is, and it is a little harder with mental health professionals, because with physical health, I don't need to like the doctor. I need to trust that they know what they're doing in terms of diagnosis, this thing. But in mental health, you need to have that connect as well. So it is a little harder to find the right fit. We went to about 5 or 6 psychiatrists. I'm not even talking therapy or psychologists. I'm saying psychiatrists just for the medication part. Before we found somebody who clicked. And I'll never forget Nina saying, Ma, this is the first person who's treating me like a person.
true. I think it's a double factor there. It's a double factor there. We need to like and trust
Yeah,
the person we're interacting with. Yeah.
true.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I know we can keep going on, but in the interest of time,
Can't believe I
shall we
asked you 45 minutes. How are we going to fill that?
Yeah, time always flies, and I'm sure we can keep going for another hour without any effort also. But
Mm,
in the interest of time, are you ready for the rapid fire?
Never be ready, but I'm willing to do it.
All right. So we'll start with the easy ones. Morning person or night owl?
Night
Night owl. Okay. Uh, Favorite way to consume information: books, movies, podcast.
books.
Any
Completely
top three
books.
or top recommendations of books that you've read?
Authors, I can say.
Sure.
Yeah. Neil Gaiman. I
Hmm.
don't always like what he's writing, but I love his writing.
Yeah.
Books, there are a couple very old books, but they've stayed with me, and they're the kind of books that you can read. So, I'll mention those. One is a book called I Heard the Owl Call My Name
Okay.
by Margaret Craven. It's a tiny little book, but
Hmm.
it made such an impact on me when I was much younger. And I've you know, just ordered another copy because I can't find mine. And How Green Was My Valley, Richard Cleveland. It's just fiction, classic.
Yeah.
It's a good read. Um, but it's about life. So yeah.
Hmm. Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Non-negotiables in your routine.
Uh, I have to eat at the dining table.
Hmm.
I can't eat on the sofa or bed or anything. Not negotiable.
Very interesting. Okay.
uh, and and no devices while eating.
Hmm. Lovely.
It upsets me a lot when people are at the table and going, on their phones or
Hmm.
laptops. They
Right.
focus on the food. Yeah.
Hmm.
Then I have recently started uh, giving some importance to a routine on yoga because that's really the only regular exercise I have. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's important for me. It's become non-negotiable. Um, Composting.
Hmm.
I compost at home, and
Hmm.
that is also a non-negotiable for
Amazing.
me.
Nice. I like the diversity in that.
Yeah. Nothing very healthy, I'm afraid, other than the yoga.
We'll get there.
Hmm.
One word, if you were to use to describe pandemic for you.
War.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
I think it was because we look at, especially for the younger people, young
Hmm.
people, it was wartime. And they've come out of it with similar impact,
Hmm.
similar kind of PTSD sort of impact
Hmm.
that wartime children had.
Hmm.
So I think an insidious war, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. True. It's quite prolonged in terms of its impact also. Yeah. Okay. And if you were to ask you one thing you wish you knew when you were younger, or many things, your choice.
Many things. That my way need not be the right way for everybody or for somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I learned something in NVC, nonviolent communication. I learned something that really stuck, in changed the way I am. And it's a question that I ask myself: Do you want to be correct or do you want to connect?
Wow. Hmm.
So that's a big shift in
Yeah.
you know uh, in what comes out of my mouth.
The ego drops.
Yes. Yeah. So this whole and over, as you get older, you realize that you're just on this little blue dot, and your actions are actually in the big picture not very significant. So yeah, it's quite humbling.
Lovely. And if someone were listening to this and are probably on their journey of self-transformation themselves, one message that you'd give them on their journey?
One message. There may be things that you discover you don't like very much about yourself. Yeah. In this journey of self-transformation, self-discovery, so to speak, self-awareness. But be compassionate to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Yeah. Where none of us are perfect. And where there is light, there is darkness also. It's part of us. That's also part of us. Be kind to it.
So powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think we need to embrace that part also to find that wholeness that we are seeking, right? We can't push that side of us away and hope to get there.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it will be a part of you that will be distressed if you don't address it.
Actually, yes. It will actually cause more problems in the future. Yeah. Powerful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Devika. I think I knew this conversation was going to be great, but really so many insights, and you put it across so simply, and it was so relatable at so many levels. So thank you for taking the time and having this conversation. I'm sure it will be great value to our listeners.
Completely my pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
Yes.
And I've enjoyed this conversation too.
Thank you.